right, so in this example, what we're going to do is we're going to find the circumference of a circle given the diameter. So we have Big Ben is a famous clock tower in London, England. The diameter of the clock face is 23 feet, and they want us to find the circumference of the clock. We're going to use 3.14 in place of pi, and we're going to round it to the nearest hundredth if necessary. All right, so first things first, let's go on and draw our circle out. And this is going to represent our clock and our diameter. So remember in our last videos, we talked about the difference between a radius and a diameter. So remember you have a center when we talk about a circle. And if we go from the center of the circle to the edge, that's considered to be your radius. Remember, if we go from the center to the left side of the edge, that's also your radius as well. So we have two radius or two radii that are within the circle. And the distance going from one edge of the circle along that same line to the other edge of the circle is called the diameter. So in this case, they give us the diameter. So that means that's the total distance across the circle, and that is 23 feet. The next thing that we need to remember is our formula when we are trying to find the circumference. Well, first off, we know that the circumference is proportional to the diameter, right? So we know that its circumference is proportional to diameter. And when we take the circumference divided by the size of the diameter, you come out with the same value, which is going to be pi. Okay. Now, we don't know what the size of the circumference is, right? So we have to rearrange our scenario so that we can figure out what the value of the circumference is, and that's the reason that the problem exists. So remember, and we've seen this in our last videos before, basically our variable that we have here is going to be c. We're trying to solve for c, okay? And so they've also told us that we're going to replace pi with the value 3.14. So let's use what we know to go on and try to figure out what the answer is going to be. So we don't have the variable or the value of c, so we're going to leave that as a variable. We do have the value of the diameter, and the value of the diameter is 23. And then we know that it is going to be equal to pi, okay? But they tell us to use 3.14 for pi. So instead of us putting equal, because remember, pi does not repeat, it's not a rational number. It goes on, an infinite number of digits, and there's no pattern. So we don't have an exact answer if we take this and turn it into our numerical expression or equivalent. We're going to use, instead of equal, we're going to say approximately. Okay, so we're going to use this as our sign to show that it's approximate. This means that it is equal. So this is your precise one here. When you show this sign, it lets you know that you are talking about pi, but instead of us writing out all of those numbers, which we don't, have time to do that, because we will be working on that for until infinity. So we're just going to write the first few digits which they've given us, which is 3.14. So here's what we have. And we know that we are trying to find the value of C. Okay, so C is not isolated. Remember, we've talked about PEMDAS. And we know that in order for us to solve if a variable is not isolated, we're going to use PEMDAS from bottom up. And so I see that C is not isolated because we are dividing by 23. So how do I undo the division? We're going to use multiplication, right? So I'm going to multiply both sides by 23. And by doing that, we have 23 divided by 23. That's gone. We're left with C is approximately 3.14 times 23. So let's see what we get. 3.14 times 23. And our answer is going to be approximately 72.22. They tell us to round to the nearest hundredth if necessary, and it's already in the hundredth place, so we don't have to do anything from there. So the circumference of this circle is going to be approximately 72.22. Okay? All right, so I'm also going to give you one more formula just so you understand that you can rewrite this another way. I used our process of elimination the way that we've been doing in the past, just so that you keep that front of mind. For me personally, that's how I would do it to solve it. But there is a formula. You can just rewrite this formula to find the circumference, and that formula is going to be that the circumference we rewrite this. Circumference is equal to the diameter. Oops, sorry. They typically put pi. Pi times the diameter. Okay, so this is a formula that you can use as well. If you don't want to isolate the variable, you would use C is equal to pi times the diameter. So it would be the same thing that we just did. We will put C, we don't know the value of that, is equal to pi times the diameter. And replacing that with the information that we know from the story, we end up with C is equal to pi is going to be replaced by 3.14. And remember, it's going to be approximate and not equal because we are changing it into an estimate. Okay, so it's 3.14 times the diameter. The diameter is 23. And then what we have is the circumference is approximately still 72.22. So those are two ways you can set that formula up this way if you want to, or you can just use the original formula that we had and then isolate the variable. Either way is going to get you the same answer.